Do you know that some movies only take 2 hours to watch, but stay in people's memories for decades? The Outsiders is one of those movies. It doesn't need superheroes or spectacular special effects. With nothing more than the story of a group of teenagers who always feel like they don't belong anywhere, the film became a symbol for an entire generation. But what is even more interesting is that what happened behind the scenes was even more astonishing than what appeared on screen. Today, let's explore 12 weird facts about The Outsiders. Before we begin, don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and travel back to Tulsa in 1965 with us. Number 12. The movie exists because of one school librarian and 104 students. In 1980, Jo Ellen Missakian was the librarian at Lone Star School in Fresno, California. She was always concerned that many boys had little interest in reading, but there was one clear exception: The Outsiders. She noticed that students who would never willingly pick up a novel were competing to borrow the library's only copy of the book. Believing the story deserved to become a movie, she and her students launched a petition. A total of 104 students signed 15 pages using different colors of ink. Missakian decided to send the petition to Francis Ford Coppola, even though she had no idea how to reach him. After asking the local library to help find a business address in New York, she mailed the petition along with a copy of the book, and luck was on her side. The letter ended up at an office that Coppola rarely used. Because of that, instead of getting buried under piles of fan mail, it landed directly in his hands. A few months later, Lone Star School received a reply. Coppola agreed to make the movie. Exactly 2 years after the letter was sent, The Outsiders officially began filming. Throughout production, Coppola stayed in touch with Missakian. She regularly updated the students on the film's progress and shared the opinions of the very people who had helped convince him to make it. When the movie was finished, Coppola brought The Outsiders back to where it all began. Before its wide release, the cast traveled to Fresno to screen the film for the students who had signed the petition. The movie also included a special dedication to librarian Jo Ellen Missakian and the students of Lone Star School, the first people to believe that The Outsiders deserved to be made into a film. Number 11. Coppola made the greasers live like greasers. Coppola did not want the greasers and the socks to become too friendly, so he brought the class differences from the movie into real life. The socks stayed in better hotels, received larger daily allowances, and were given nicer printed scripts. Meanwhile, the greasers got the cheaper version of everything. They stayed in worse accommodations, received less money, and were handed worn paperback scripts that matched the poor characters they were playing. It was the same movie, but two completely different levels of treatment, and that was exactly what Coppola intended. He then took things even further by having the actors playing the greasers spend a night in the homes of working-class families in Tulsa. That is how Lowe and Tom Cruise ended up sleeping on a couch next to a fireplace in the basement of a complete stranger's home in Oklahoma. The funny part is that only a few weeks earlier, Cruise had been furious about having to share a hotel room with Lowe in New York. Lowe later described his reaction as ballistic. Cruise eventually got the private hotel room he wanted, but when Coppola told him to sleep on a stranger's couch because it would help his performance, he did it without saying a word. By the time the camera started rolling, no one had to act out the difference between the greasers and the socks anymore. It had become real. Number 10. The SE on every copy was a lie. The cover simply says, S.E. Hinton, not Susan or Susan Eloise Hinton. Just two initials, enough to hide the fact that the author was a teenage girl. It was an idea from the publisher, Viking. In 1967, most of the people deciding whether a book deserved attention were men. A novel about gang violence written by a teenage girl could easily be dismissed from the start. So she agreed to publish under the pen name S.E. Hinton. She began writing The Outsiders when she was just 15 years old while attending Will Rogers High School in Tulsa, and completed most of the manuscript at the age of 16. The story also came from real life. One of her friends had been beaten up simply because he was a greaser. Furious about what had happened, she went home and wrote the opening pages of the novel. After nearly a year and a half of revisions, Viking agreed to publish the book. Interestingly, the contract arrived on the very day she graduated from high school. Because she was not yet 21 years old, her mother had to co-sign the agreement. At the time, books for teenage girls were mostly gentle romantic stories, the kind she once described as Mary Jane Goes to the Prom. They were too perfect and nothing like the life she saw every day. The Outsiders was her answer to those stereotypes. Ironically, that same year she received a D in creative writing, not because of the novel, but because she had poured all of her energy into it and had no interest left for her other assignments. More than 14 million copies have been sold since then, and the initials SE are still on the cover, continuing to do exactly what they were meant to do back in 1967. Number 9. The famous poster was never supposed to exist. The official image of the 7 greasers smiling together, featured on posters and merchandise for more than 40 years, was never part of the original plan. The photo shoot was supposed to present the boys as tough, serious, and staring directly into the camera. But everything changed because of one joke. As Leif Garrett walked over to the catering area, Ralph Macchio reportedly blurted out, "Hey Leif, that's for actors with talent." Everyone immediately burst into laughter. While the cast was still laughing, the photographer kept taking pictures. That spontaneous moment became the movie's most famous poster. What makes it even more interesting is that in 1982, Leif Garrett was the biggest name in the cast. He had already been a teen idol since the mid-1970s, built a successful music career, and appeared in numerous movies and television shows long before most of the other actors had become familiar to audiences. But things changed quickly. By the time the photo was taken, Garrett was 20 years old and playing only a supporting villain. Standing beside him were 7 young actors who would all go on to become major Hollywood stars within just a few years. None of them knew that the moment they all laughed together would become one of the most iconic images of The Outsiders, capturing the moment just before an entire generation of stars reached the height of their careers. Number 8. A 7th grade class corrected the director. In 2005, a class of 7th graders convinced Francis Ford Coppola to recut The Outsiders. That day, he brought the movie to his granddaughter's classroom for a screening. He sat and watched with the students, but throughout all 91 minutes of the 1983 theatrical version, he became more and more uneasy. The students kept asking, "Where are those scenes?" They noticed that many important moments from the novel were missing, especially the emotional scenes that Coppola had cut years earlier at the request of Warner Brothers to shorten the movie. Those 12-year-old readers remembered every detail from the book and knew exactly what had been left out. After leaving the classroom, Coppola realized something very simple. The students understood The Outsiders better than the version of the movie he had released. And exactly 22 years later, he decided to revise his own work. The Outsiders, the complete novel, was released in 2005 with a running time of about 114 minutes instead of the original 91. The new version restored many important scenes, including Ponyboy being attacked by the Sox in the opening, the courtroom scene following Johnny's death, and the late-night conversation between Soda Pop and Ponyboy, a scene many readers consider the heart of the novel. Coppola also replaced almost the entire soundtrack. He removed most of the orchestral score composed by his father, Carmine Coppola, and replaced it with early songs by Elvis Presley, Jerry Lee Lewis, and Carl Perkins. The kind of music the greasers in Tulsa during the mid-1960s would likely have been listening to. Interestingly, the version that most fans today consider the most complete exists only because one classroom kept asking, "Where did the best parts of the movie go?" Number 7. Stevie Wonder wrote the song Not a Bargain Bin Music Supplier. The song Stay Gold heard during the opening is not a stock music track that Coppola picked to save money. The lyrics were written and performed by Stevie Wonder. The music was composed by Carmine Coppola, Francis Ford Coppola's father. He was also the composer behind The Godfather and Apocalypse Now. What makes it remarkable is that a movie that struggled just to secure enough money for the film rights opened with a collaboration between a Motown legend and an Academy Award-winning composer. It sounds almost unbelievable. At the time, Coppola was struggling to raise about $10 million to make the film. He was telling the story of poor teenagers in Tulsa, had several actors staying in the homes of friends, and even kept the daily allowances intentionally low so the cast could better understand the lives of their characters. Yet the moment the movie begins, the audience hears Stevie Wonder's voice in a ballad written specifically for the outsiders. And he did not treat it as just another assignment. The song was built around the film's most important message, that beautiful things are often fragile and rarely last long enough. That is what makes the opening so special. A movie made on a limited budget still managed to deliver a world-class musical introduction, as if every dollar had been invested into those first few minutes, so the audience could immediately feel the emotion the story wanted to convey. Number 6. Half of Hollywood in the 1980s auditioned for this movie. 6 of Fouve. Imagine a room filled with Tom Cruise, Rob Lowe, Patrick Swayze, Emilio Estevez, Ralph Macchio, Matt Dillon, and C. Thomas Howell. They were all reading for the same handful of roles while everyone else stood nearby, watching each performance. That was Francis Ford Coppola's approach to casting. Instead of holding separate auditions, he gathered dozens of young actors into one room, constantly switched roles, and paired different actors together to find the cast with the strongest chemistry. The process was intense and highly unusual, but it was exactly what he had planned. Anthony Michael Hall also auditioned, but was not cast. Meanwhile, C. Thomas Howell won the role of Ponyboy at just 15 years old. Hall later went on to become one of the most recognizable faces in John Hughes movies. Rob Lowe clearly remembers the unusual atmosphere of those auditions. Even though everyone was fiercely competing for the same roles, they still helped each other fix their hair, apply makeup, and offered encouragement between script readings. According to Lowe, everyone was incredibly ambitious, but they also quickly became close friends. Even more remarkable is the list of actors who did not get cast. Sean Penn, Mickey Rourke, Robert Downey Jr., Timothy Hutton, Dennis Quaid, and Scott Baio all auditioned but did not make it into the movie. Even so, most of them later became major Hollywood stars. Looking back, the casting sessions for The Outsiders feel like a gathering place for an entire generation of talent. Even being turned down was not the end. For many of them, it was simply the beginning of an extraordinary career. Before we get to the next facts, we want to see which side the Outsiders community is on. Team Dallas or Team Johnny? Cast your vote in the comments and be sure to tell us why. Don't forget to like and subscribe because there are still behind-the-scenes secrets you have probably never heard before. Let's keep going. Number 5. Even the extras went on to become famous. The rumble scene in The Outsiders lasts only about 2 minutes, with mud, rain, and teenagers rushing into a fight. But if you look carefully around the edges of the frame, you will spot quite a few faces that later became famous. One of them is Flea, who appears as a sock. This was his very first film role, more than a year before Red Hot Chili Peppers released their debut album. That also means Flea's acting career, chronologically speaking, actually began before music made him famous. Not far from him is Cam Neely, who was only 17 years old at the time and chasing his dream of playing in the NHL. He later became a Boston Bruins legend and was inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame in 2005. Then there is another interesting story. Nicolas Cage, born Nicholas Kim Coppola, and the nephew of Francis Ford Coppola, seriously auditioned for the role of Dallas Winston. He even locked himself in a room for 2 weeks studying photos of Charles Bronson, hoping to capture the character's exact attitude. In the end, however, the role still went to Matt Dillon. Not long afterward, Nicholas decided to drop the Coppola surname and build his career on his own, so that his success would not be credited to his famous uncle. According to many long-standing stories, he also made a brief appearance in the rumble scene as an uncredited sock. However, that claim has never been confirmed and remains the subject of considerable debate. In other corners of the frame, there are several other notable names. Melanie Griffith is believed to appear as a sock. Heather Langenkamp filmed a small role as Steve's girlfriend 1 year before A Nightmare on Elm Street made her famous, but all of her scenes were cut before the movie was released. And the little girl who asked Dallas for spare change, credited only as Domino, is Sofia Coppola, who later won the Academy Award for Best Original Screenplay for Lost in Translation. Looking back, one of the most talented background casts in 1980s Hollywood appeared in nothing more than a muddy gang fight between rival groups in Tulsa. Number 4. Coppola could not afford to make The Outsiders. S.E. Hinton set the film rights to The Outsiders at $5,000. However, the advance she received was only $500, along with 10% of the profits from a film studio that was on the verge of bankruptcy. That studio was Francis Ford Coppola's Zoetrope, which had been thrown into financial trouble after the failure of One from the Heart in 1982. The film cost about $26 million to produce, but earned only around $636,000 at the box office. Coppola had almost bet his entire studio on that project and suffered a devastating loss. Ironically, a director who owned multiple Academy Awards struggled to secure film rights worth only $5,000. But what convinced Hinton was not the reputation of The Godfather. What truly persuaded her was The Black Stallion, the 1979 film that Coppola produced. Hinton loved the movie because it remained faithful to the spirit of the original book. As a horse owner who had seen the film, she believed Coppola would show the same respect to The Outsiders. To complete the deal, Coppola also invited Hinton to make a cameo appearance. She played the nurse whom Dallas harasses at the hospital. Throughout production, Hinton was on the set almost every day. She regularly gave advice about the characters, so much so that the cast began calling her the mother of the entire crew, because she was always patiently guiding a group of young actors, many of whom were younger than the novel they were bringing to the screen. Number 3. A member of House of Pain saved the house from demolition. The Curtis family house was not a movie set. It was a real house located at 731 North St. Louis Avenue in Tulsa. After filming ended, the house remained there, slowly falling into disrepair for more than 2 decades before eventually facing demolition. In 2009, Danny Boy O'Connor, a member of the hip-hop group House of Pain, best known for the song Jump Around, had a 3-day stopover in Tulsa during a concert tour. A lifelong fan of The Outsiders, he asked a taxi driver to take him to the old filming locations. When he found the house, he took a photo and posted it online, and the picture quickly went viral. Danny Boy returned several more times. Then in 2016, he decided to buy the house for $15,000, even though he had never stepped inside. It was about half of his entire life savings. After purchasing it, Danny Boy stripped the interior down to the frame and restored it to look exactly as it did in the movie. He asked fans from around the world to help, and the response exceeded all expectations. People donated money, sent memorabilia, traveled there to help repair the house, and Jack White even contributed $30,000. In August 2019, the Outsiders House Museum officially opened its doors and now welcomes about 20,000 visitors each year. Inside are many original memorabilia items, including Coppola's director's chair, Emilio Estevez's Mickey Mouse shirt, more than 500 editions of The Outsiders in different languages, and even a 1949 Plymouth Super Deluxe parked behind the house. Number 2. Robert Frost was credited for a line he never wrote. This is something that confuses a lot of people. If you open Robert Frost's poem, Nothing Gold Can Stay, you will find that it contains only 8 lines, takes about 30 seconds to read, and ends with the famous line, Nothing gold can stay. That is Frost's line. But the line, Stay gold, pony boy, is not. It was written by S.E. Hinton, or more precisely, spoken by Johnny Cade, in the letter he leaves for Pony Boy after his death. Hinton took Frost's melancholy idea that nothing beautiful can last forever and turned it into a message of hope. Hold on to the good things while you still can. The same 2 words, stay and gold, are still there, but the meaning is completely different. Ironically, the line most people remember is Hinton's version. The reason so many people get confused is easy to understand. Johnny says those words right after Ponyboy reads Frost's poem. For more than 60 years, the line in the poem have gradually merged into a single memory for many people. Stay gold has appeared on graduation cards, tattoos, yearbooks, and even album covers. Yet many people still say, that's a Robert Frost quote. In reality, he never wrote those words. It is also rather ironic when you look back at S.E. Hinton's journey. A teenage girl had to publish her novel under 2 initials because she feared her work would not be taken seriously. Her mother had to co-sign the publishing contract because she was not old enough. And the most famous line she ever wrote is still regularly credited to someone else. Perhaps considering everything that happened, that ending feels strangely appropriate. Number 1. Coppola kept shouting, "More fire." The church fire in The Outsiders was a real fire, but then things became even more real than anyone had planned. Wanting the scene to feel as authentic as possible, Coppola repeatedly told the crew, "More fire." And the fire that had originally been under control actually got out of control. What saved the cast and crew that day was not the film crew or the firefighters, but a sudden heavy rainstorm that arrived just in time and put out the flames. The church was not just another filming location. It was the place where the story reached a major turning point. Johnny and Ponyboy hid there, then ran back into the burning building to save the children. That single act turned them into heroes, just before the real tragedy unfolded. That is also why Coppola was determined to make the fire look as real as possible. It was not because he wanted to take unnecessary risks, but because this was the most important scene in the entire movie. He wanted the audience to feel the real danger, because at that moment, the danger truly was real. It is hard to believe that an Academy Award-winning director nearly allowed a church fire to grow beyond control just to capture the scene he wanted. In the end, the Oklahoma weather saved the entire production, and that footage remained in the final cut. For Coppola, good enough never seemed to be enough. So there you have it, 12 weird facts about The Outsiders, 1983. Which one surprised you the most? Or do you know another fascinating behind-the-scenes story about the movie that we did not mention? Share it with us in the comments below. If you enjoy videos exploring weird facts about classic movies and television shows, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss our upcoming videos. Thank you for watching all the way to the end. We will see you in the next adventure of discovering more amazing stories.